Okay, so for this unit, we're going to be talking about what happens when you mix chemicals together. So this is one of the more fun units because towards the latter half, when we start doing our labs, I'm going to be giving you guys chemicals. You're going to be mixing them together, and then you're going to be figuring out what chemicals you make. So this is the unit where we work with fire, where I give you acids to work with and whatnot. So kind of the more fun, not dangerous, but dangerous stuff. But just a reminder, to do the labs, you have to be able to do the content. So if you aren't able to do the information like the math and the chemistry stuff, you're not going to be doing the labs. Because if I can't trust you to pay attention during a lecture, I'm definitely not trusting you with fire and acids. So just make sure if you want to participate in that you're following along. But that's what we're working with. So the stuff we're going to be working with are called chemical reactions. You guys don't need to write this down. I'll tell you what's important. But chemical reactions are very simple. It's basically where you mix chemicals and you make new chemicals. Okay, that's a chemical reaction. You can think of it as a recipe. Now, what I do want you guys to write down is this part right here. These two terms, reactants and products. So I want you guys to take a minute to copy the definitions down. I'll explain it, and then we have one last little definition thing, and then we'll get into the actual problems for today. But take about a minute or two, copy down the definition of reactants and products. Okay, so let's start with the first definition, reactants. So this is very simple. It's the chemicals that you start with in your experiments. So when you guys do your labs, the reactants are the chemicals that I give to you. It's kind of like the ingredients that you start off with. Okay, whereas products, these are the chemicals that you're going to be making. So as you do your reaction, the chemicals are going to change, and the chemicals that you make are called products. So reactants are your starting chemicals. Products are the things that you make. Okay, now, every time you write a chemical equation, there's a very specific format that you're going to follow, and it's going to be this right here. Okay, I want you guys to copy this down. Basically, you write the reactants, the ingredient chemicals on the left side, and then you draw an arrow, and on the right side, you write the chemicals that you make. Okay, so copy this format down because this is pretty much what we're going to be doing and looking at today. You're going to be writing equations, but you always write your starting ingredients on the left. You draw an arrow, and then you write your product chemicals. Copy down this format. So if we're trying to write a chemical equation for lemonade, we're making lemonade, right? So is lemonade a reactant or a product? Product, yeah. If you're making something, this is going to be your product. So when we do our answer, what we're going to do is we're going to have an arrow, and lemonade is going to go on the right side of the arrow. Okay, so this is our first problem. Leave a little space on the left side because that's where we're going to put our reactants. But we're going to draw an arrow, and since we are making lemonade, lemonade is your product. Okay, so product is whatever you make goes on the right side of the arrow. All right, so let's talk about the reactants now. So when you're making lemonade, what are your reactants? What do you make it with?
Sour.
Yeah, sours of taste. Yeah, you need water, you need lemons.
Sugar.
Yeah, probably sugar. Let's keep it basic. Let's do the three main ingredients. Okay, you could add other stuff to it if you want. Huh? Yeah, lemon, sugar, water. That's pretty much it. So your reactants are your starting ingredients. So same thing with chemistry. Whatever chemicals you start with are called your reactants. And then what you do is you separate them with a plus sign. Okay, so this is it's like math. Okay, plus sign to separate them. There are 3 reactants and 1 product. Okay? So the reactants, you just separate them with a plus sign. Okay, so that's what a chemical equation is generally going to look like. Any questions on the general concept? Hopefully it's not too bad. Today is pretty easy. No, it's a compound though. Okay, so let's look at actual chemical equations now. First thing we're going to do is we're going to analyze them to see what the reactants and products are, and then I'm going to teach you guys how to write the actual equations. Okay, so we're going to take a look at number 2, and what I want you guys to do right now is just take a minute, copy down the equation, and then I'll show you guys how to solve the problem. This is the first type of problem that's on your assignment, but copy down the equation for right now. So this is our reaction. This is our chemical equation. It's our recipe. Basically, what it's telling you is if you mix these chemicals together, you're gonna make this chemical right here. So for this problem, what we're gonna do first is we're gonna write down what our reactants are, and then we're gonna write down what chemical is our product. Okay, so we're gonna write down our reactants, and we're gonna write down our products. Okay, so to do this, we need to look at the equation. If you take a look at the equation, there are two chemicals and they are separated by the plus sign. So our first reactant is going to be the chemical H2. Okay, H2. And then our second chemical is going to be Cl2. And that's pretty much it. That's all you're doing for the first type problem. You're just identifying what the chemicals are, what the starting ingredients are. So this equation is telling you, for your recipe, you're going to be mixing H2 and Cl2. And then the recipe tells you what you're going to make, which is your product. And then your product chemical is just the one on the right side of the arrow. Your product is HCl. Okay? And that's pretty much what you're doing for the first type of problem on your assignment today. Any questions on that one?
No.
Okay. All right. Let me see if you guys understand it. So try number 3. You can work with the person next to you. But same thing. I want you to look at the equation. This time you don't need to write it down. I just want you guys to write down the parts that we wrote down together. So list the reactants for me, and then list the products as well. Take about 2 minutes to do that, and then we'll go over it. Feel free to work with the person next to you. Okay, so for number 3, we're looking at the equation again. So the arrow is what splits everything down the middle, right? So we're going to take a look at the arrow, and then left side are your reactants. So if you look at the left side, how many different chemicals are on the left side of the arrow? 2, yeah, it's just separated by the plus sign. So the first reactant is CH4. And if you guys notice, you're not adding anything to it, right? You're just copying it exactly the way it is. Don't change these chemicals. Don't change the uppercase, lowercase. Don't change the numbers. It's copied exactly the way it is. The other chemical that you start with is O2. Okay, so your recipe is telling you you're starting with these 2 chemicals. Let's go to the products now. Okay, same thing with the products. Okay, this time there are 2 products. So you're making 2 chemicals with 2 starting chemicals. The first chemical you make is CO2. This is carbon dioxide. It's what you're breathing out right now. And then H2O, it's gonna be water. Yeah. Always a product, yeah. The arrow separates the reactants and product. It's like a recipe, yeah.
Oh, so
if you guys take a look at number 4, it says octane, and then it gives you the formula, C8H18. Octane is the gasoline in your car. It's the chemical that makes your car go. It reacts with oxygen. So we're gonna stop right there. So if you look, it says octane and O2 react together. So what you're doing is you're starting with these chemicals, and then it says to form H2O and CO2. So between the 2, if you look, these 2 are the ones you start with, right? You are reacting these 2, and you are making these 2 right here. So now that you know that, you guys can write your reactant and product. So you start with octane and O2. So on the left side of the arrow, you'll have C8H18. You're reacting with O2, so plus O2. Okay, so you're starting with these 2 chemicals. Okay, that's what it means to react. Reacting them together means you are basically mixing them. Okay, this is what your car does. And then what does it do? They form, so we make, so we draw our arrow. And then the chemicals that you make are H2O and CO2. Okay, and that's how you write a chemical equation. Okay, so today, it's pretty simple. It's basically, can you understand what the problem is saying? All you're doing is figuring out what are your starting chemicals. You put them on the left side of the arrow, draw an arrow, and the chemicals you make go on the right side. Okay? So if you look at 5, let's talk about fentanyl and BR2. Now, is fentanyl what we are starting with or what we're trying to make? we're trying to make it, right? So this is a reaction for making fentanyl because it says can be produced. So is fentanyl and BR2 going to be a reactant or a product? Yeah, so this one is going to be a product. So this is a little bit kind of flipped in the actual sentence. But since we're making fentanyl, C22H28N2O and BR2 are going to be our products. So they're going to be on the right side of the arrow. So keep that in mind. Just because they come first in the sentence doesn't mean it's always the reactant. Okay, so just remember, when you read the sentence, figure out what am I making, what am I starting with? And then it tells you you can make it by reacting these two chemicals. So that means these two long ones right here, C8H9Br and C5H10ClNO. These are our reactants. So you're using these two chemicals to make your fentanyl and BR2.